While it's true that the Boston Bruins are getting hosed by the NHL and its officials, it's also true that the Florida Panthers are the better team in this series.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, May 13th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today we're talking about, Game 4 of the series between the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers, the residual effects of Game 3. And we're going to frame it as two truths and a lie. Two things that are true at the same time in this series, and also a lie that we will discuss later on in the show. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. I am a lifelong Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years or so. Was a full-time hockey news writer at The Score for 5 years and have since been hosting this podcast. And the Bruins are on the verge of another early playoff exit, now down 3-1 in their series against the Florida Panthers. And lest I be accused of whining and complaining, not holding the Bruins to account on the ice as I was on the YouTube channel over the weekend, let's just get it out there. The Florida Panthers are the better team here, and there's a reason why few, if anybody, picked the Bruins to win this series. In all situations so far this series, the Florida Panthers have been the better team. They have 63% of the shot attempts, 65% of all shots taken in this series, 62% of the goals scored. They're outscoring the Bruins 16-10. And they've just been the better team. Despite not getting the better goaltending in this series and having a lower shooting percentage overall, the Bruins just have not been able to generate the kind of sustained offense that you need to win in the playoffs. All right? In all situations, the Panthers have been the better team. At 5-on-5, they've been the better team as well. 61.67% of the shot attempts, 63% of all shots taken. They're outshooting the Bruins at 5-on-5, 102-60. In all situations, they're outshooting the Bruins 146-79. The majority of the game is played at 5-on-5. Pretty even in terms of the goals scored at 5-on-5. The Panthers only have an 8-7 advantage. We'll talk about the power play opportunities they're getting, but scoring chances 5-on-5, they have a 95-54 advantage. High danger chances, if you can believe it, are in favor of the Bruins here in this series at 5-on-5. Or high danger opportunities anyway, shot attempts, 34-33. So that's what's frustrating here. The Bruins have been wildly outshot by the Florida Panthers in this series. All right. Every game, the Panthers have outshot the Bruins. It was 39-29 in game 1. In game 2, it was 33-15. 33-17 in game 3. Sorry, game 2 it was 33-15. Game 3, 33-17. Game 4, 41-18. You're not going to beat a lot of teams in the playoffs by regularly being outshot. And in all situations in this series, the Bruins only have 35% of all the shots taken. The Florida Panthers are a very good defensive team. They're very good at controlling the play, dominating possession, which they did all season long. If you are a regular listener of the podcast, you would have remembered I talked about how the Panthers were a top team all season long in terms of shot attempts, shot attempt differential, in terms of scoring chance differential. They're like a top 3 team all season long in these key stats. In terms of shot differential as well, they were top 5. So this is a team that dominates possession, that controls the play, controls the puck, and the Bruins all season long have been a team that has struggled to generate shots. They were where did they rank here in terms of shots? 5-on-5, they were 23rd in the NHL with 48.26 shot attempt differential. 5-on-5 play during the regular season. They were regularly outshot, and they lived on their top ranked goaltending, or third ranked in the regular season. While Jeremy Swayman has played very well for the Bruins, if you're not scoring and you're always playing defense, then you're demanding perfection from your defense core and from your goaltending, and they're just not getting it. While their goaltending has been better than Sergei Bobrovsky, and the Bruins have, better shooting percentage and a much better save percentage than the Panthers have 5-on-5. The reality is they're just not getting enough shots on net. And Sergei Bobrovsky has proved to be incredibly leaky in this series, but they're not getting enough shots on goal to counter what the Panthers are able to do. A lot of that, yes, is because the Bruins have spent more time killing penalties than the Panthers, and they're wearing themselves out as a result. We'll touch on that here in a couple minutes, but still, at 5-on-5, the Panthers have been dominating possession. And they're just, let's be honest, the better team here. They went to the Stanley Cup final last year after beating the best regular season team in NHL history in round 1. They beat the Maple Leafs. They swept the Hurricanes. This is a very good team, and they've gotten better. They have added to the group as well. And this is a team that could very well once again be in the Stanley Cup final. These Boston Bruins are not built for that this year. It's a win that they got to the second round, but they don't have the center depth. They have dead cap money that they can allot elsewhere. They don't have scoring wingers or scoring depth, enough guys who can finish, and they're just straight up not getting the puck on net enough. So let's be honest with ourselves here and say the Bruins are getting outplayed in this series, and it's reasonable and logical to assert that the Florida Panthers are the better team and should win this series. But as we will discuss here as the podcast continues, the Bruins have been getting hosed by the officials and have been ignored by the NHL so-called player safety department. And that has affected their ability to compete in this series. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. They help you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through your decision. They give you unbiased advice from licensed expert support team. No incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google from customers who found the best fit for their needs at Policy Genius. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you can check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel over there. All the latest news, opinions, analysis from all across the Locked On Sports universe, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, heading into Game 4 of the series between the Florida Panthers and Boston Bruins, the pregame coverage was highlighted by an angle of the Sam Bennett hit on Brad Marchand that pretty clearly demonstrated Bennett with his right hand, which had his stick knob in it, delivering a blow to Brad Marchand's face. Marchand was ruled out of Game 4 and is day-to-day with an upper body injury that likely and is reported to keep him out of Game 5 as well. There is absolutely no way the NHL did not have that angle prior to Game 4 or immediately after Game 3. And it was reported before Game 3 that because of some shenanigans that took place in Game 2, this series would be under heavy scrutiny by the NHL. With that said, they did not give much thought to suspending Sam Bennett for that play, an injurious play on Boston's captain that knocked him out of Game 4 and could knock him out of the entire remainder of the playoffs. How in the world is that footage allowed to be displayed on Sportsnet, on TNT, as part of the pregame discussion, and the NHL just says, yeah, nothing to see here? I was listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast this morning with Elliot Freeman and Jeff Merrick, and they said the Bruins were pretty upset because the NHL pretty quickly said, well, that's not the kind of play that we really suspend. So it's just not something we're going to take a look at. How is there not even a conversation about that kind of play? And if you compare it, as many people were doing, to a similar play in last year's playoffs involving Matthew Nyes of the Toronto Maple Leafs, where Sam Bennett got that right hand in there and injured the Leafs forward. It's a pattern of behavior here that is not being held to account. And people are applauding, saying, well, Sam Bennett is just a sneaky, dirty player. He's the kind of guy that you want in your team. He gets things done. At least on Sportsnet, the broadcast I was watching, Justin Bourne, who I greatly respect, used to work with at the Score, he rightly called it out as a greasy play. Sam Cosentino went as far as to call it dirty. And if that's the kind of thing we want in hockey, then I'm watching the wrong sport, because that is injurious and dirty and the kind of thing that could really mess with people's careers. Of course, Sam Bennett went on the TNT broadcast and said he was just bracing himself for a hit. Perhaps he was trying to protect his left hand that had been previously broken and kept him out of action. He's not going to come out and say, yeah, look what I did. I got away with it. Shouldn't have been able to play in that game, in my opinion. to add insult to injury, we have a situation where Bennett scores the game-tying goal in Game 4 after cross-checking, or at the very least pushing, Charlie Coyle into Jeremy Swayman. And the goal was allowed to stand, despite it being pretty clear goaltender interference. And full credit to scouting the refs on Twitter. They posted the official rule, which reads as such. If a defending player has been pushed, shoved, or fouled by an attacking player so as to cause the defending player to come into contact with his own goalkeeper, such contact shall be deemed contact initiated by the attacking player for the purpose of this rule, and if necessary, a penalty assessed to the attacking player, and if a goal is scored, it would be disallowed. End quote. Now, I've heard the argument that Jeremy Swayman wasn't going to make the save regardless. He was not in a position to make the save on the Sam Bennett goal. That doesn't matter. The reality is Charlie Coyle, who's the defending player on this play, was pushed, shoved, or fouled by an attacking player who was Sam Bennett, causing the defender to come into contact with his own goalkeeper, Jeremy Swayman. That should have been deemed contact initiated by Bennett, and the goal should have been disallowed. It's right there in the rule book. It shouldn't be open to interpretation as to whether Swayman was going to be able to make the save or not. That does not matter in the equation. The reality is Bennett pushed Coyle into Swayman. Swayman was interfered with. Therefore, the goal should not have been allowed. And then the Bruins make that challenge. They lose the challenge, and then they have to waste energy killing off a penalty that should not have been a thing because the goal should not have been allowed to have been scored, quite frankly. So Hampus Lindholm goes off for interference against Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which you could argue was embellishment on Oliver Ekman-Larsson's part. Bennett scores the goal that it's not allowed. The Bruins go back on the penalty kill for an unsuccessful challenge. And then the Bruins are gassed, obviously frustrated, discombobulated. Alexander Barkov somehow is able to skate through the zone and score on a fantastic individual effort to get the game-winning goal. Yes, the Panthers are the better team, and that was a great effort on Barkov's part, but the Bruins were expending unnecessary energy in that period, killing a penalty that shouldn't have been called because of the unsuccessful challenge. The Bruins, with that Sam Bennett incident on Brad Marchand not getting serious consideration for supplemental discipline, and Bennett, who arguably should not have been in that game, scoring a game-tying goal on a play that should have been ruled goaltender interference. And then the Bruins losing the challenge after giving the referees ample time to call the rule as in the rule book. The Bruins are just expending unnecessary energy in that situation. And I mentioned the 5-on-5 numbers. The Panthers have 36 minutes of 5-on-4 power play time in this series. The Bruins only have 16 and 43 seconds. That's double the time the Bruins have spent killing penalties than the Florida Panthers. I'm just begging the referees, even if the Panthers are the better team, to give the Bruins an honest shot in this series, because it's not happening. And I see a lot of people on social media saying, well, what do you expect? If you name Brad Marchand the captain, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. The Bruins have been getting away with stuff for years. The narrative that the refs favor the Bruins, that is officially over in this series. You can no longer make that assertion. So 2 truths to start the podcast here. The Bruins are getting outplayed, but the Bruins are also getting hosed in this series. Both things are true at the same time. And while it was always likely that Florida was going to win this series. The Bruins aren't getting really a fair shot in this one. Yes, the shot total was skewed in Florida's favor, huge, but the Bruins were killing unnecessary penalties. They were not getting the correct calls, especially on that one. And Barkov being able to come into the zone, the Bruins were gassed from killing all those penalties and obviously clearly frustrated. It is what it is. The Bruins are down 3-1 in this series, but you can no longer say that the Bruins are getting preferential treatment from anyone after watching this series. Now, those are two truths. We're going to talk about one lie here as well that I want to call out as false, and we'll do that here as the podcast continues. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your ride, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. The eligible items only, exclusions apply, and the eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers. All right, let's discuss one lie here as we wrap up today's podcast, and that is that the season is now a write-off for the Boston Bruins. They're still in this series, and we saw last year the possibility of an underdog coming back and winning after being down 3-1. The Florida Panthers did so against the Boston Bruins just last year. All right, the Panthers are arguably the better team, but it is not over until it is over. And even if it does end in Game 5 on Tuesday, it will be a disappointing outcome and it will be a very frustrating path to that outcome. But I don't think this season is a failure or a disappointment by any means. I think the Bruins, this was always going to be a transition year, and we'll discuss this more in the eventual post-mortem for this team, barring a Stanley Cup win. My position will be that this has been a successful bridge transition season for the Boston Bruins. They have money tied up in bonus overages to Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. They signed a bunch of guys to dirt cheap contracts to fill some huge voids. And you've seen how they've been able to be a top team in the Atlantic for most of the season. They were able to dispose of the Toronto Maple Leafs despite them, they were missing some key players at times throughout that series. The Bruins have been without some key players at key positions all season long. You could argue they don't have a top center. Right now, Morgan Geekie is playing top center for the Boston Bruins. That is no disrespect to Morgan Geekie. He's been a great addition to the Bruins, but the Bruins need a top center, an elite center. You need an elite center to win in the NHL. They do have an elite winger in David Pastrnak, but you need that center position to win faceoffs, for defensive coverage, etc. The Bruins need to add that in the offseason. They need another scoring winger. They have an all-world goaltender in Jeremy Swayman. They have one of the better defenders in the NHL in Charlie McAvoy, although he has been not great in this series, admittedly. But again, when the ice is tilted so far down, you're pushing uphill all series long, you're going to have some breakdowns. And perhaps he's also not fully 100% physically. In fact, I'd be shocked if he is not dealing with some sort of injury. The Bruins just aren't built to win this season. And the fact that they've been able to go further than they did last season is a win. And you're getting some experience for Mason Lohrei, a youngster. You're getting to know and see what you have that you can carry through to next year. In bring Danton Heinen back, bring Justin Brazeau back. Johnny Beecher deserves to be in the lineup full time. These younger guys incorporating into the lineup. You could have Matt Poitras back next season. They do miss him in the lineup right now. You have some good pieces moving forward. You can identify the areas that you need to add this offseason, whether by trade or by free agent signing. You'll have more money to spend this offseason. They could quickly retool here and be a much better team next year and have this experience to work with. Now, having said that, there's no lying down and taking this from the Panthers and the NHL. General Manager Don Sweeney is going to be speaking here at around lunchtime on Monday. And I just want him to come out full 2002 Wayne Gretzky in Salt Lake City, just calling out the powers that be about how the Bruins are getting hosed in this series. Jim Montgomery was very muted last night. I would have loved to for him to come out and call BS on that goaltender interference call. He wasn't doing it. Maybe he's leaving it up to the higher ups. I bet you Cam Neely is just fuming. Don Sweeney doesn't really have a reputation for being a super fiery guy, but I'd love to see him come out and call the NHL out for these inconsistencies and these just terrible calls. They've lost their captain. They lost game 5 because of a terrible call. I mean, not because of that call, but not because of that call. And he needs to come out and light a fire under his team here. But either way, this has been a successful season for the Boston Bruins. I will continue to bang that drum. Yes, they have deficiencies. We knew that all season long. They've been outshot all season long. They're not a huge shot volume team. And for them to have any chance of coming back, they need to get the puck on Sergei Bobrovsky because he can be leaky. He can be beat. He was beat twice last night. The Bruins weren't able to hold on to the lead. And we know partly why. And that was a crappy call by the officials on that goaltender interference call. So yes, I'm complaining. Yes, I'm whining. Yes, I'm frustrated. It's true the Bruins are getting hosed. It's true the Bruins are getting outplayed. But it's a lie to say this season is a failure because I think they have taken steps forward. And while it's shaping up to be a frustrating end, there are some positives. And the Bruins, let's be honest, were not built to win this season. Anything can happen in the playoffs. It still could. But if you're disappointed with the Bruins not making it to the conference finals or winning the Stanley Cup, your expectations for this team were a bit too high to begin with. All right, that's it for today's episode, my friends. I hope you're all doing well, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. I hope you all had a nice Mother's Day despite all this. And we'll be back tomorrow to preview Game 5 to bring you all the latest on the black and gold, including what we learned from Don Sweeney's comments today and any lineup changes coming up. Yeah, that's it. Take care, friends. Happy Monday. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.